Okay, so good morning, everyone. My name is Maddie Cash. I'm one of the attorneys for the Association of Townships, and welcome to Township Tuesday. We do this every first and third Tuesday of the month. If you're not familiar, if it's your first time, welcome. If you come every week, thank you. We really appreciate having an audience. So today I will be talking about election judges. My information will be at the end if you have any questions that you don't want to ask throughout the presentation or something unrelated, you can always shoot me an email or call me, but I'll provide that information at the end. Now, today, I have a few updates before we get into the information on election judges, just regarding Matt and what's coming up and things along those lines. So I'll get started with those two. Oh, and Heather, the director of Maddie, the insurance trust, will be taking over at the end here to kind of give you an update on that end as well. So don't hang up right away once I'm finished, because Heather will take over. All right, so the agenda today, I kind of already talked about it, jumped the gun a bit, but so we'll talk about MAT updates, and then the MnDOT has some traffic safety workshops coming up for road authorities such as townships. So I'll give some information on that. And then Earn Sick and Safe Time, which was a law that went into effect on January 1st. Has some updates that I'll go over. There are quite a few updates, so it's a little bit long, but I'll have some information there and we can chat about it a little bit. And then I'll get into election judges and kind of what the topic was for today, for today's Township Tuesday. Okay, so MAT updates. So district meetings are coming up. They start on August 6th and go through August 29th, depending on your district. That information is on our website if you want to look up when and where your district will be located. I think there's a few that are undecided still, so take a look at those and be sure to join us if you can. And then also L&R is on September 13th. Of this year. That's the Legislative and Research Committee. They develop, review, and recommend legislative action for the Township Association on behalf of townships. So we'll have more information on that coming up, but it is on September 13th this year. So mark your calendars for that. All right, and then the Minnesota Local Roads Traffic Safety Regional Workshops. So MnDOT, State Aid, and MnDOT Office of Traffic Engineering have in-person safety workshops coming up with 24 locations across the state. So it's really covering all areas of the state. Oh, thanks. Leslie put a link for the district meetings in the chat there. Thanks, Leslie. But these meetings are all throughout the state, which is really nice, and they're in person. They start June 20th, so just in a couple days, and then they go through January 15th, so a year long. There's a lot of locations that you can access so that you can really get the best experience. The goal is to provide townships or other road agencies with updates to reduce fatal and serious injuries and crashes on the roadway system. So the workshop will be held in a classroom setting in person with opportunities for questions and discussions throughout the day. So that's really nice. With everything going to Zoom lately and things like that, it'll be nice to have an opportunity to meet in person and discuss those opportunities with road safety. The full day workshop will cover Minnesota traffic safety history. So the history of traffic safety in Minnesota and what that looks like, and then regional crash data reviews, which will break down the data into contributing factors and focus areas and vulnerable road users to help understand crash trends and why they happen. Countermeasures, solutions for frequent crash types, grouped together by rural and urban areas, depending on probably the location you go to and who is in the audience. So you'll get more information there. And then effective communication, so strategies for communicating with elected officials, stakeholders, and law enforcement, the people who make these changes which is not only helpful in terms of road regulation, traffic safety, and funding, but it can be helpful in any circumstance where the law is not in favor of your township, where you can really reach out to a elected official, a legislator, and voice your opinion there. So those are helpful tools for this specific topic, but really for any topic that you guys have concerns about. And then funding opportunities, so an overview of state and federal funding for local transportation agencies, and then time for discussion. So questions and anything not covered in that period. So the schedule for these workshops and the registration information is on the MnDOT website. I was going to put the link here, but I didn't think it would be really helpful. I don't know if you'd be able to access it. So if you need the link, you can't find it, feel free to reach out to me. Otherwise, it is on the MnDOT website if you want to look for that there. If you have questions or concerns, you'll want to contact that state aid traffic safety engineer, Grima Freisa. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly. I hope I am. But she will be a good contact for you, and that is her email and phone number if you have questions. All right, so there is the traffic and safety workshops, and then updates to earn sick and safe time. So as we know, this law went into effect on January 1st. It requires employers, including townships, to provide sick leave, a certain amount of sick leave for their employees, whether they are full-time or part-time, if they're working 80 hours. So it was recently updated to clarify who qualifies for earned sick and safe time, the rate in which it must be paid, applications for other paid time off, and things along those lines. Most of these changes were in effect as of May 25th, so they're already in effect. So going forward, this is how you'll want to take note of these changes. All right, so we'll start with the earning statement. So employers are no longer required to provide information about the employee's earned sick and safe time hours available for use and hours used during the pay period on their earning statements or paychecks. They can now choose a reasonable system for providing that information at the end of each pay period. They can choose to do that electronically, so you can choose to provide your employees with that information electronically, as long as you provide them with a computer to access during the regular working hours, and so they can review and print the information. It also clarifies that employees who are anticipated to work at least 80 hours in a year for an employer are covered by the Earned Sick and Safe Time law. So before, it was anyone who is working 80 hours a year, which was a little bit difficult to determine. And so they changed that language to say anticipated to work 80 hours a year to give a little bit of leeway there. This still hasn't been tested by the courts or anything like that, but there is kind of clarity in that language. So anticipated to work 80 hours a year rather than working 80 hours a year has been changed. They also clarified that earned sick and safe time requirements don't apply to volunteer or paid on-call firefighters, volunteer ambulance attendants, paid on-call ambulance service personnel, elected officials, individuals appointed to fill vacancies in elected offices, and individuals employed by a farmer, family farm, or family farm corporation who work for 28 days or less per year. So clarification on who these earned sick and safe time laws apply to. They also changed the increment of time used. So earned sick and safe time law changed to establish that employees can use the same increment in which they pay their employees. So by the hour typically, right? They are not required to allow earned sick and safe time use in less than 15-minute increments, and they cannot require that an employee use their earned sick and safe time at more than 4-hour increments. So it can't be less than 15 and it can't be more than 4 hours. Employees have to provide employers who have to provide employees who work who use this earned sick and safe time with their base pay, or a pay that is equal to the amount that employee would earn on their regular hourly basis. So whatever they would have earned if they had been working during that time period in which they took off, that is what they will typically be receiving. For employees paid on a salary basis, it would be the same rate that they would have earned when they took that time off. For employees paid on a commission or piecework basis, it's a little more complicated. So they clarified that to say that they can't make any less than the state or local federal minimum wage, or whatever they would have been paid had they worked that time, whichever one is greater. So any application to other time off. So if an employer provides employees with paid time off other than this required earned sick and safe time, that is more than the amount required under the earned sick and safe time law for absences due to illness or injury or other PTO, it must meet the same requirements as the earned sick and safe time hours other than that accrual amount. So the 1 hour every 30 hours worked. So if it goes beyond that, it must meet all of the same requirements as the law besides that accrual amount. Employers can also not require employees to use that PTO accrued after January 1st before using PTO accrued before that date. So they can't require them to use that earned sick and safe time PTO before they use the PTO that was accrued before that. That provision goes into effect next year, so that's a little bit delayed. All right, and then more earned sick and safe time updates. There's lots of them. Bereavement is now covered by earned sick and safe time. So those hours can be used for funeral arrangements, attending funeral services, memorial services, to address financial issues that come up with a death of a family member, things along those lines. The changes also clarified that 3 consecutive days of earned sick and safe time. Right now, if someone is sick 3 consecutive days, that triggers the employer's ability to require reasonable documentation for that sickness or for the reason as to why they're taking that ESST time. Now, they clarified that those 3 days must be working days. So if someone took a day and a weekend, that would not count towards those 3 days that they can trigger that documentation requirement. There's also a weather event exception for certain employees. So previously, you could use earned sick and safe time for absences related to closure of a workplace or a family member's school due to weather or public emergency. They've clarified that certain employees cannot use it for that reason, and that would be firefighters, police officers, 911 dispatchers, correctional facility guards, and public employees with a commercial license. And that's because those are the people who need to respond to those emergencies, right? So those people are not able to use that time for those periods. And then they clarified the remedies for earned sick and safe time violations. So if an employer does not provide earned sick and safe time as required by the law, that employee is able to have the earned sick and safe time they should have been provided, and also the equal amount as liquidated damages. So they clarified that they can provide them up to that 48 hours each year if it wasn't provided, and then also the liquidated damages amount that they could have received. All right, that's all for earned sick and safe time updates. I'll jump into the election judges information now. So with elections this year, I just thought it would be a good overview to chat about kind of what is required of election judges, what they look like, what our recommendations are. So in order to be an election judge, a person must be eligible to vote in Minnesota, able to read and speak English, appointed by the Township, and trained and certified as an election judge. There is an exemption to the requirement that all election judges are trained and certified if the precinct is less than 100 people who voted at the last general election, so state general election. In those precincts, having only 2 of the required election judges trained is sufficient if they are not from the same political party. So if you have 2 election judges because you have less than 100 voters, then you will want 2 people who are not in the same political party. If an electronic voting equipment is used in the precinct, though, such as a statewide election, it's recommended that all election judges are trained and certified. So you want to make sure you're doing that if there is an electric voting requirement. So anyone applying to be an election judge also needs to declare their political party affiliation if they are affiliated with a major political party as well. Election judges cannot be a candidate within that election, or the husband, wife, parent, child, brother, sister, or someone who is domiciled with a candidate, someone who lives with a candidate in their household. That includes step-parent, step-child, step-brother, step-sister. So that would also be included. And also a challenger cannot be a election judge. All right, so appointing election judges. Each major political party will furnish an electronic list of potential election judges to the Secretary of State's office. Once that's done, the Secretary of State will furnish that list to the auditor's office. Once the county auditors receive that, they will forward that list to city and town clerks. So you will receive that from the county auditor's office, and it will be a list of people who will be able to be election judges. The clerk then recommends election judges to be appointed for the upcoming election, and the town board makes the appointment 25 days before the election by resolution. The clerk will also want to suggest that the town board include wording in the resolution to allow the clerk to substitute as necessary if an election judge can't fulfill their duties or doesn't show up along those lines. So you want that language in the resolution as well, just in case. If there aren't enough people on the list, the town board can appoint anyone else who meets those qualifications. Now, the number of election judges can be a little bit confusing. So a minimum of 4 election judges must be appointed for each precinct in the state general election, provided that a minimum of 3 election judges are appointed for each precinct with less than 500 registered voters 14 weeks before the state primary. So if you have less than 500 registered voters, then you can have 3 election judges. At all other elections, 3 election judges are appointed for the precinct. In a combined polling place, so a polling place with multiple municipalities, at least 1 judge must be appointed from each municipality in the combined polling place, provided that not less than 3 judges are appointed for each of the combined polling places. So you still need to meet the minimum of whatever that may be if it's a combined polling place, but at least 1 must be from each location. An election judge can serve for all or parts of the election day as long as you're still meeting those minimum amount of judges required to be at that location at all times throughout the day. And then if a judge doesn't show up to the polling place or doesn't perform his or her duties or whatever the reason might be, the other judges can select a qualified person from the precinct to fill the vacancy, or the clerk can also fill the vacancy as it occurs. All right, so employment of these election judges. So in 1998, the U.S. Immigration and Naturalization Services exempt jurisdictions to that hire election judges from the Form I-9 employment verification procedures. So you don't have to follow those. And the town board sets the compensation for each of these election judges, but it has to be at least the state minimum wage. I don't know what that is at the top of my head right now, but it has to meet at least the state minimum hourly wage. The appropriate way to pay election judges is typically through payroll. Election judges are employees, and are usually paid through payroll because there are certain reporting requirements on the township, and the payroll process captures those requirements in the most efficient way. Now, if you want to pay election judges through the claims process, and don't submit necessary reporting documents or make appropriate withholdings for election judges, you could be creating tax issues for the township. So be aware of that. And if you want to go that route, be sure to consult with a tax professional before you do. Election judges should also be receiving W-2s. They are employees of the township, and they work for the township. Receiving W-2s and acting as an employee through and through kind of just protects them and the township from any liability concerns that might come up. The town also has to consider training and work-related travel along with mileage for these election judges in their compensation. Judges can volunteer their time without pay if they submit in writing that they would like to do that no later than 10 days before the election. Anyone who would like to be an election judge can take time off of work without losing pay as well. So, the next issue with election judges is party balance. So there's a little confusion there for township elections in conjunction with statewide elections. So if the township election is not in conjunction with a statewide election, it's a separate township election, then they are exempt from this requirement. But for township elections in conjunction with statewide elections, at least 2 election judges in each precinct must serve with a different major political party designation. So there must be at least two differences. The remaining election judges can serve without an affiliation to a major political party or whatever affiliation, but no more than half of the judges in a precinct can belong to the same major political party unless there are only 3, which is not an even number. So obviously there would be one political party with 1 extra. But you want to make sure that you're maintaining whatever party balances that you are required to maintain. So the major parties of Minnesota are Grassroots Legalized Cannabis, Legalized Marijuana Now, Republican, and DFL. Again, townships held not in conjunction with statewide elections are exempt from this requirement, so it's not something that you have to worry about for township elections. Those don't need to be politically balanced. And then training your election judges. So all election judges must successfully complete training in order to be an election judge. The county auditors are responsible for these trainings unless they designate that responsibility to the township clerks. So if the clerk is conducting election judge training, the clerk must attend an adult education training approved by the Secretary of State. So that would be on their website, or you can contact them to see where those trainings are occurring. Current editions of guides and training materials are available at the election judge training website and on the Secretary of State website. There's also a clerk election guide for township clerks specifically on the Secretary of State website. That's really, really helpful, has a lot of good information if you want to make sure you're just on top of all of the elections materials coming up. So that's really helpful. Clerks have to arrange to have at least 1 election judge guide available in each polling place on the election day. So you want to make sure you have that available. But the training authority, whether auditor or clerk, must develop a training plan that outlines the staff and resources assigned to the training. It should also include the dates, the topics that are covered, the materials that are used, and the plan has to be available for public inspection. So in the same place you would keep your records. The training plan has to include the names of people conducting the training, the number of sessions, the project attendance, and materials that are used, training methods, and outline the contents of each election judge training course, basically. Trainers, whether that be the auditor or The clerk have to keep record of the training of each election judge and each training that they've completed, and give a certificate to the election judge, head election judge, and healthcare facility absentee voting election judge who successfully complete their training courses. Any time spent attending or conducting election judge training can be counted towards a clerk's initial election administrator certificate or biennial certification requirements. And township clerks are strongly encouraged to take advantage of election judge training if they can. Training will include kind of those 3 phases. First, the basic training course, the 2-hour basic training course that is required every 2 years, and then maintaining that basic course, which is just making sure you attend every 2 years at least, and then any additional trainings that you would like. So additional trainings are required if that person will be administering healthcare facility voting or serving as a head judge. Topics in these trainings include use of equipment, how to find answers within the training materials, opening polls, how to do that, election judge duties, how to close the polls and when, new laws or forms or procedures that need to be updated, major problems noted in prior elections or recent elections, and then whatever the head judge responsibilities are. So that's what's typically included in these elections trainings. All right, that's all I have for you in terms of elections. Here's my information, but I will give you a second to kind of take that down if you need it. Oh, I didn't see, sorry, that it didn't notify me that the chat was going off. Sorry. Okay, so salaried people get to earn sick and safe time at what rate? So you'll want to break it down to determine how much that person would have earned during the time they took off, and that's what rate they would earn in that earn sick and safe time. And elected officials do not earn sick and safe time. And then, yes, it's recommended that the judges are approved via resolution. Yeah. Okay. I think that's everything. Oh, confirm. Did you say election judges now? So we recommend that election judges receive a W-2 just for liability purposes. They are considered an employee, and you don't want there to be any confusion about that. That's our recommendation. Yeah. All right, so I will turn this over. Sorry, I missed that. It didn't notify me that the chat was going off. Odd. But I will stop sharing my screen, and I will turn this over to Heather to take over.
All right, so I'm going to see if I can't figure this out really quick. All right, excellent. So you guys should be looking at 2 invoices, correct?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Thank you. I just kind of wanted to go over just kind of the new format, the new layout of our new coverage document that we will be sending out on Thursday. So Lent, you can see here, is no longer with us. So this is actually their information from last year. And like I said, Heather Stan, if you've been to any of my presentations, is one of the newest townships in Minnesota, and it's a terrible place. Don't ever go. So with this in mind, I just kind of want to show you guys some differences. Everyone's been asking, when are we going to get our invoices? Coverage will start on the 1st of July, and you can see here the pay date is going to be the 15th of August. So everybody's got plenty of time, no worries. We're on top of things here for that. And we've got plenty of time for everybody to review this and get with your boards and have discussions. So something that's going to be a little bit different from things in the past, the way that you may have seen. Number one is you're going to get a whole set of documents. There'll be policy language in here and stuff, wording, all of that. And it's going to be different from township to township. You're only going to see what you have coverage for. In the past, you kind of saw everything regardless of whether you had that coverage or not. But now you're only going to see what you specifically have. I apologize for the weird formatting here. We had to do it this way for printing purposes, but when you get it, it will make a lot more sense. So obviously for purposes of, the consolidated liability coverage, the package that everybody has the inland marine property coverage, and everyone has the general liability and public employers liability. So that's going to be universal. Everything else is not. So as you can see, Heather Stan, that's all they've got. Oh, so property inland marine is kind of considered one, even though it's broken out here for limit information. And then the GL. If we come over here and look at what Lent had, so Lent had the GL, they had some firefighter information here, property, they've got the crime endorsement, they've got the auto liability things, auto physical damage. So you can see already these two documents are very different just based on the assets that the trust is covering for them. So as we continue through, again, you'll see that, so here you're going to have your schedules. All right. Again, this is going to be based on what everybody has. Heather Stan doesn't have anything. We've got nothing. There's nothing there. Whereas, you can see Lent has items that they were covering through the trust. All right. So again, everybody is going to be just a skosh different with what you're actually going to see. You can see the total number of pages here. Again, because there's not as much coverage in the Heather Stan document as there is here in Lent. So Lent's got this whole auto. You can see this is going to be very unique for anybody who's ever looked at any kind of an insurance or coverage policy. The font is big and it is easy to read. So first and foremost, that was very important to me. I wanted to make sure that this was something that you could sit down and read, hopefully without too much problem. I tried to put this together at a very common, easy reading language. It's not going to be, there's not a lot of insurance-y lingo or jargon. It's very easy to read and understand, at least I believe so, for what this document is. And so the coverage itself has not changed a lot as you go through it. The provisions, everything that Matt had covered before, we're going to be covering now. Everything that we didn't cover before, we're still not going to cover. And so, but I do highly advise that everybody sit down and, read through this at least once, right? So that, in the event that something occurs, you can go back and say, I saw something about that in my documents, or I didn't see anything about this in my documents. Let me go back and see if that's the case. And then again, these documents are the same in terms of the, language across the trust. Everybody who's got the auto gets the same auto. Everybody who's got, the general liability has the same general liability. And so all of that will be uniform throughout. Now, like I said, the only difference is going to be when you have certain endorsements that are different from, township to township. So just, be aware of that. So if you're like, well, I saw this before, or I saw crime before and I'm not seeing crime now, then, that means that you don't actually have that. So if you're interested, make sure you get with us. If you're seeing that, hey, wait a minute, I thought I had this coverage in the past. I thought we had the firefighter endorsement, and you're not seeing it. You don't actively see it in your policy, in your coverage document. That means you don't have it. So make sure that you get in touch with us and we can make sure that we have that, we get that added for you. That's really kind of, I just wanted to let you guys see here that these are, we haven't forgotten about anybody. These are coming, they're on their way. Let's see, I've got some questions here. When will we be mailing these? We are mailing them on Thursday. One for, if, I'm not sure who's, if you need Chris Weber, I can send you an email of this for you if you want to have it by then. You should, I'm not sure how long that's gonna take, but we're putting them in the mail, so that's about a week. I'll email you this as well so that you have that. The amounts will be the same as your proposals that we sent out earlier this year, provided that none of the coverage has changed. But I'll get that for you. And then, whoops. Let's see. Okay, Chris, thank you. Nancy. Okay, yeah, July 1st, you'll definitely have this in time for that, but I can get you that too. Do you guys have any questions about this new document or anything else? All right, well, Maddie, do you have anything else?
That's all I have. So thanks for joining us, everybody.
Oops,
Have
hold
a
on,
great
there's one more message. Okay,
Oh.
never mind. Oh, it's a thank you. You're welcome.
Great. Okay, well, everyone have a wonderful afternoon. Stay dry. We'll see you next time. Thank you.